I want to look at the word more. He's already told me a lot, but now he's going to tell me some more. He said, you know, they're not going to go for that spiritual experience any more than I did. Remember, the solution is the spiritual experience described on page 27 and 25 of the book. Bill said they're not going to go for that. He said, so let me write a chapter called More About Alcoholism, and I'll guarantee you, if they're the real alcoholic, they're going to go for that solution or they're going to die. There ain't much of a choice here. People say, well, how do you know he said that? Well, I read a lot of history of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you ever read AA Comes of Age, it's there. And there again, he knew that we wasn't going to like that experience any more than he did. Because if you remember, and we covered it this morning, and it was back on page 12. If you hold your place right there and run back to page 12 for just a quick second. Those of you on Zoom, if you'll just hold your place and go back to page 12, we're going to look right there where he says, despite the living example of my friend, there remain to me the vestiges of my old prejudice. The word God still aroused a certain antipathy. When the thought was expressed that there might be a God personal to me, this feeling was intensified. I didn't like the idea. He said I could go for all these different conceptions, but I couldn't go for, I resisted the thought of the czar of the heaven, however loving his flame may be. When we learn more about alcoholism, none of that matters anymore. I'm here for one reason, and that's to save my ass now. I guarantee you nothing else matters. So in step 2, let's go back to page 30. In step 2, we are restored to sanity. Then if that's the case, then insanity must be the problem, not while drinking or acting out or whatever it is I do, but while I'm sober. Yeah, I'm crazy, man. When I'm sober, nothing has changed. The only thing I've done is stop drinking. You know, we get sober, hell, we grab a fork or a spoon or whatever it is. I mean, we just go to other things. So we're going to look at sanity and we're going to look at insanity in this chapter. And the definition for sanity is wholeness of mind or complete. That's an individual who is able to see the truth about what's going on in life. Now, the definition for insanity is quite the opposite. The insane mind is one that is less than whole, and it sees the false. The problem is I believe something is false, and I try to make it the truth. I end up in all kinds of confusion. Doctor said we cannot differentiate the truth from the false. And whenever something doesn't go my way that I think it should, and I'm thinking it's the truth, I start making decisions based on a lie, and life becomes pretty lousy for me because I'm trying to make the lie the truth. And see, the bad part is I don't even know this is really going on, but everything that's going on outside of me ought to be telling me this shit ain't right. Something's wrong here, but I don't even see it that way. So we're not crazy. You know, the definition of insanity is something quite different than I always thought it was. I always thought it was a crazy man that's up at the nut house. And I mean, that's one definition of insanity, but that's not the insanity that this book is talking about. Insanity is being less than whole, believing a lie. And that's what I do. I believe the lie. My sponsor, Charlie, would say it like this. He'd say, David, I have a pie sitting here. And somebody comes along, and I give them a piece of the pie. And somebody else comes along, and I give them another piece. He said, that pie is less than whole now. He says, it doesn't mean that it's all gone. It just means it ain't all there, like you. And that's kind of how it's been, you know. So insanity doesn't mean that we're all gone. It just means we're not all there. And there's a chance we can get that back. Most of us have been unwilling to admit that we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think. Man, we got to pay close attention to these words when going through this process. No one likes to think is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. See, self is going to convince us that we're not that way. That is found in our thinking. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove that we could drink like other people. The key word here, idea. See, self lives in our ideas. Somehow, someday, we will control and enjoy our drinking. It's the great obsession of abnormal drinkers. Why the hell would I think something like that? Where would an idea like that come from? That doesn't come from sane thinking. That comes from insane thinking. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. I can't even see it happening. Many people pursue it into the gates of insanity or death, even sober. I was 25 years. I mean, I know. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves. We were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion, he's going to talk about this in many different ways, we're like other people or presently maybe, has to be smashed. So, we alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control. See, I didn't lose control. I lost the ability to control. There's a hell of a big difference in that right there. And if I'm not able to control, who got that ability? We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. I have to know that. That's a choice. All of us felt. We want to pay attention to that word because that's another place that self lives, is inside the feelings, ideas, concepts, beliefs, thinkings, and attitudes. Remember, we felt at times we were regaining control. Where the hell would a feeling like that come from when I've been beat half to death by this thing? Everything I've ever done proves that I'm going to die, and I still feel like I got a little control. Jesus, that can't be me doing the thinking there. It can't be. There is something much greater than me driving my thinking, that insanity that's killing me. It says, such intervals, usually brief, were followed by still less control. There's choice again. Which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. We were convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. See, he didn't say that we were in a grip of progressive illness. Hell, he says we are in the grip of a progressive illness. Without this spiritual awakening, even sober, we're in that. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better, even sober. So let's go over to the middle of page 31. And we're going to look at some of the methods we have tried. I'll tell you what self-done. I didn't know this for 25 years. It convinced me that my spirit was sick. And it told me, you got to work on the spiritual condition. How the hell do you do that? I know spirit to be source. I know it to be the creator. I know it to be God. How the hell can that be sick? That ain't possible. There's just no way. Well, they say the book says it. Well, it does, but if you read it with an awakened mind, it don't say that at all. We're going to take a look right here. I used to read this and think, oh, that sounds pretty good. If I'm wrong, correct me, but I don't see spirit mentioned here one time. Here are some of the methods we have tried. Drinking beer only, that's physical. Limiting the number of drinks, that's mental. Never drinking alone, that's mental. Never drinking in the morning, that's mental. Drinking only at home, that's physical. Never having it in the house, that's mental. Never drinking during business hours, that's mental. Drinking only at parties, that's physical. Switching from scotch to brandy, that's physical. Drinking only natural wines, that's physical. Agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job, that's mental. Taking a trip, not taking a trip, that's mental. Swearing off forever with or without a solemn oath, mental. Taking more physical exercise, that's physical. Reading inspirational books, that's mental. Going to health farms and sanitariums, accepting voluntary commitment to asylums, we could increase the list, add infinitum. Where the hell did we see anything about the spirit there? None. It's not there. And so when people read this to me, I'm like, bullshit. No. I don't think so. Well, let's look real quick at 2 drink tests. If you're not convinced, the book says, let us help you. Here's drink test number 1. We don't like to pronounce any individual as alcoholic, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. Step over to the nearest bar room. Try some controlled drinking. Try to drink, stop abruptly. Go ahead and try it. People say, oh, don't be telling people that in Alcoholics Anonymous. What the hell is wrong with you? Book tells me that. If you're not convinced, check it out. I hope it helps convince you. The book says right here, it may be worth a bad case of the jitters to get a full knowledge of your condition. So this chapter is going to talk to us about 4 individuals. A man of 30. We're going to look at a man named Jim. We're going to look at the jaywalker. And we're going to look at a man named Fred. And all of these guys have different stories, but they have one thing in common. They have a mind that always drives them back over and over and over. Look at the man of 30. Did a great deal of spree drinking. He was very nervous in the morning after these bouts and quieted himself with more liquor. He was ambitious to succeed in business, but saw. He had a vision. He'd get nowhere if he drank at all. Key word. Once he started. Why? Because of that allergy. Remember? Once we start, can't stop no more. He had no control whatever. He made up his mind. That's a dangerous damn thing to do in here. Until he'd been successful in business, he had not touched another drop. An exceptional man. He remained bone dry for 25 years and retired at the age of 55 after a successful, happy business career. This is 25 years later. Look at this sentence. This is what happened to me. Oh, it didn't happen to me with alcohol and drugs. It happened to me with other stuff. He then fell victim to a belief. One of the few times this book's going to talk about us being a victim. Man, I got to pay attention to this. He fell victim to a belief. That's self. Remember, it's made up of beliefs, concepts, ideas. He fell victim to self, which practically every alcoholic has, that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline qualified him to drink as other men. So if you read the rest of the story, outcome is carpet slippers. He's puzzled, humiliating. He tries to spend all of the money that he can, and he dies within 4 years, top of 33. This case contains a powerful lesson most of us have believed. Key word right there. That comes from self. We could remain sober if we remain sober for a long stretch, we could thereby drink normally. Why the hell would I believe something like that? Wow. I see that there is something greater in my head driving me, and that's what's got to go. If that don't go, I'm a dead man in these rooms walking. I promise. At some point in my recovery, it's coming back to see me, and I'm not strong enough in the steps to handle it, and I don't know that. I think I'm doing well. Let's have a good time. Yeah, there's going to be some ass patting and going to meetings, all right, but it's going to be in a bad way because that's what happened. Well, Bill says this, and I don't agree with it. Here was a man at 55 and found where he was just left off at 30. I don't believe that because if you look at the prior page, that man had a choice when he was 30. He quit for 25 years. After he picked up again, he didn't have that choice no more. He tried everything in the world to quit drinking and died. He didn't have a choice. As we've seen the truth demonstrated again and again, once the alcoholic, always. Commencing to drink after a period of sobriety, we're in a short time, worse than ever. If we plan to stop, there must be no reservation. Where would a reservation come from? In my mind. Nor lurking notion, where would that come from? In my mind, that someday we will be immune to alcohol. All right. Let's take a look now at page 35 in the book. There again, I would love to study this in depth all the way across, but time doesn't permit us to do that. That was the first example. Let's look at the second one. We're going to talk about a man named Jim. Middle of the page. Our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency, had a commendable world record. He's a good salesman. Everybody likes him. He's an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a nervous disposition. He'd been dope drinking until he was 35. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated that he had to be committed, and on leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us. Now, let's look at what they did for Jim. And we want to pay attention to his thinking, and let's try to look at this in our own life, and this may help us avoid the pitfall that he had to go through. We told him what we knew of alcoholism. That's step one. They told him about the physical allergy. They told him about the mental obsession. They described the spirituality. They talked about self. They told him what they knew of alcoholism. And the answer we had found. That's step two. We came to believe that a power greater than self could restore us to sanity. Jim made a beginning. If you read in the third step, this is where we make that beginning. So Jim has taken the first three steps according to those two sentences in this book. Now, here's some good things that begin to happen for us after we take the first couple of steps. His family was reassembled. That's pretty cool. He began to work for a salesman through a business that he had lost through drinking. All went well for a time on these first three steps. But here's what happened to Jim. He failed to enlarge on his spiritual life, steps 4 through 12. So if you come in here and work the first three steps, things start getting a little better, and all of a sudden work becomes a little more important than meetings. And my time there becomes more important than my time here. And people are saying, hey, where are you at in that inventory, David? What's going on with it? Oh, man, I'm going to get to that. I promise you. I got time tonight. I'll sit down and take care of it. I come home, I'm tired, I go to bed. I don't do no inventory. I failed to enlarge on my spiritual life. Look at what happened to Jim. Just consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. That's 6 times back to back to back to back to back. He relapsed. On each of these occasions, we worked with him. Them's pretty damn good members. that will work with somebody 6 times, who relapse 6 times back to back to back. Most people in AA today will run you off over that. I've been guilty of doing that myself. But look what they said. They reviewed carefully what had happened. So he agreed he was a real alcoholic in serious condition. So he knew step 1. But notice how it says he knew. He faced another trip to the asylum, jail, treatment, whatever you want to call it, if he kept on. He knew this. In his mind, in his heart, he knew it. And he also knew this, that he would lose his family for whom he had deep affection. It doesn't matter. The insanity in self is stronger than is the recovery on these first 3 steps. If we don't move beyond that, I promise you this is coming back to get us. And yet he got drunk again. We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. This is his story. I'm like Jim. He asked me what happened. Hell, I'm going to come up with the story. He said, I came to work on Tuesday morning. Now, I don't know about here in West Texas, but over in Oklahoma, work week starts on Monday, not Tuesday. So we know where Jim was all day Monday. Hell, he's drunk, you know. I remember what he says here. I remember I felt irritated. Look at those 2 words. That's self. It's made up of feelings, ideas, concepts, beliefs. Remember that. So self is starting to work on him here. He feels irritated that he had to be a salesman for a concern I once owned. I wouldn't be feeling too happy about that either. He said, I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Anytime I've had a few words with my boss, it's been serious. So I don't think Jim's telling the truth there. He says, then I decided. So now Jim's making decisions for himself. To drive to the country to see one of my prospects for the car on the way I felt. Remember, self is made up of feelings. So he says, I felt. Self told him, we're hungry. Let's stop. Hell, there's a bar up here. Look what he says. I had no intention of drinking, just thought. Key word. I thought. Remember, self is made up of thoughts. I get a sandwich. Hell, I'm hungry. Let's go eat. Yeah. I had a notion. Remember, self is contained within notion. So we see how this mind is creeped in on him, and it's starting to eat him up. He ain't got no defense against this because he's only done the first 3 steps. He ain't going to meetings anymore. He's enjoying the family life. Everything's going okay. He said, I had the notion I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar. I'd been going to it for years. I'd eaten there many times during the months I was sober. So that tells me Jim been sober for some months on them 3 steps. Sat down at the table, ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still no, key word here, thought of drinking. Nothing insane about what he's done up to this point. Ordered another sandwich and decided. Remember, self makes our decisions for us. Have another glass of milk. Nothing insane about that. Look how quick self will turn. Suddenly. And that's like, by God, right now. The thought. See, the drink didn't come at him first. The thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. Coming in and working the first 3 steps and getting a pretty good idea of what's going on with me, why the hell would I think something like that? I come to find out it's not me doing the thinking. I'm just taking the action based on those thoughts, and the hell is about what's about to come. Ordered whiskey, poured it in the milk. Now he's got it in the body. He believed the lie. He put it in the body. Now he's triggered the reality. He says, I vaguely sensed I wasn't being any too smart. Shit, now I'm starting to vaguely sense that. Not before. But notice he says, I felt, key word, self lies within our feelings. I felt reassured. Self says, hell, you're taking it on a full stomach. No worries. Have another one. So the experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey, poured in the milk. That didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another. Thus started one more journey to this all for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, loss of family and position, to say nothing of the intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always causes. He had much knowledge. It doesn't make a damn how much knowledge you have here about yourself. All reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor for the foolish, key word right here, idea that he can take whiskey if only he mixes it with milk. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this the plain insanity. How can such a lack of proportion of the ability to, key words right here, think straight, be called anything else? Hell, I can't think straight. I don't have any choice. Self has my choice. It's directing my thinking. It's directing my choices. I'm taking the actions based on those thoughts, and I'm having hell, same as Jim. All right. Let's go over to page 37. We're going to drop down to the bottom paragraph. Our behavior is absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink, is that with a passion, say, for jaywalking. He gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Up to this point, you would label him as a foolish chap having queer ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him. He's slightly injured several times in succession. You'd expect him to cut it out. Keyword, if he were normal. There's something abnormal about that type of thinking. Only I don't think there is. Presently, he's hit again. This time he's got a fractured skull. After a week leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good. I'd have told you that for 25 years. I've decided to stop jaywalking. We're not going to do this anymore. I promise, and I mean it. God help me. Let's go to meetings. Let's read books. Let's sponsor more guys. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's don't go inside and soul search, David. Let's don't admit nothing to nobody. Don't practice 10-11. Don't worry about that. We'll get to that later. Yeah, it's telling me all this shit, and I'm listening to it. And I start running the meetings, sponsoring all these guys, doing all this stuff. Boom, I fall into that behavior again. I'm like, what the hell is happening to me? I don't understand it. Bottom paragraph. Some of you are thinking, that's dangerous. Yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. Why the hell would I say something to guys like that? I mean, they're telling me the truth, and I'm like, yeah, what you tell me might be true, but I don't really apply. We admit we have some of these symptoms, but we've not gone to the extreme you fellas did, nor are we likely to. We understand ourselves so well. Oh, boy. As self tells me that. Yeah, we understand things better now. We're not going to do that anymore, David. Don't worry about it. You got a different sponsor now. Things are better. He knows more than the last one did. We'll work the steps with him, and everything will be fine. It's like, cool, let's go. And I buy into that thought and listen to that shit, and the next thing you know, there I am again, caught up in that. And I'm thinking, why? How the hell does this keep happening to me? But I think it keeps happening to me because of this right here at the top of page 39 in the first full paragraph. This type of thinking, and that's what he's saying, this type of thinking might be true of certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily, which is mentally and physically, at the time are able to stop or moderate because their brains, that's mental, or their bodies, that's physical. See, we're not talking about spirit here. You don't see nothing about the spirit here. Why do I keep coming in here trying to work on the spirit? Wow. But the actual potential alcoholic, with hardly exception, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self, notice the little f, knowledge. Turn those two words around, that's knowledge of self. That's what I need more than I need self-knowledge of what the hell this is trying to say. This is the point we wish to emphasize and reemphasize. To smash on our alcoholic readers has been revealed to us out of bitter experience. Let us take another illustration. So we looked at Jim. Jim's low bottom drunk. He got a resentment at his boss. He got drunk. Fred is a high bottom drunk. There's a difference. These two men are the same. They drank the same. But there's one thing that makes them the same person. It's the insanity of the mind that drives them back to drink after they've been dry for a period of time. So Fred's a partner in a well-known accounting firm. His income is good. Happily married. Father of promising children of college age. He has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone. If ever there was a successful businessman, it is Fred. This illness doesn't care if you're successful. It doesn't care if you're poor. It doesn't care what color you are. It just doesn't matter. Well, it was his first experience of this kind. He is much ashamed of it, far from admitting himself he was an alcoholic. The book says he told himself, but I believe self told him that he went to, you're just going to go to the hospital and rest for a few days. That's kind of the thinking that we have. Well, the doctor intimated strongly he might be worse than he realized. So for a few days, he's depressed about his condition. Self is like, oh, man, we've had it bad. And things are rough, but it's going to get better. Hang in there, buddy. And, all this bullshit. He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether, but it never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so. Notice the words, he made up his mind. I think his mind made it up for him. Much less accept a spiritual remedy, step 2, for his problem. We told him what we knew of alcoholism. That's step 1. He's interested, considered he had some of the symptoms. But he's a long way from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself. So he was positive that his humiliating experience plus the knowledge, key word, he had acquired would keep him sober the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it. Well, Fred gets drunk again. Many of you know the story. Let's look at some of the key words. Skip that next paragraph and go to the one that says, let him tell you about it. I was much impressed with what you fellows said about alcoholism, but I frankly did not believe. That's how self is. It will convince me not to believe that it will be possible for me to drink again. He says, I rather appreciated your key word here, ideas about the subtle insanity that precedes the first drink. See, that's the problem, the subtle insanity. We know it as self. Look at what he says. This is self. But I was confident. Yeah, it brings confidence to me for a short time. It cannot happen to me again after what I've learned. I always want to learn something here. I always need to know something. He said, I reasoned, that's self, that comes from self. I was not so far advanced as some of you fellows. See, I start comparing when I come in. I've been usually successful in licking my other problems, that I would therefore be successful where you men felt. Key words. I felt. I had every right to be, key words, self-confidence. That'd only be a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard. Anytime we feel that way and take those actions, I don't know about you, but I know about me, and I get my tail kicked every single time I try that. Every time. Go to the next page. Third sentence down from page 41. Physically, I felt fine. Keyword, I felt. Felt fine. Neither did I have any pressing problems or worries. My business came off well. I was pleased. I knew my partner would be too. It was the end of the perfect day. Not a cloud on the horizon. I come into Alcoholics Anonymous and they tell me, David, you suffer from a feelings disease. I'm like, really? I said, yeah. I said, that ain't what page 41 tells me. What the hell do you mean by that? Read that. Physically, I felt fine. I didn't have no problems or worries. Everything come off again. It was the end of the perfect day. I didn't drink because of that. That ain't why he drank. Look at why he drank. I went to the hotel, leisurely dressed for dinner, and as I crossed the threshold of the dining room, the thought, key word, the thought came to mind. Well, it wasn't because it had anything to do with how he felt about his day. The thought came to mind, it'd be nice to have a couple of cocktails with dinner. That was all, nothing more. So I ordered a cocktail. He believed into the lie. The insanity told him, hey, let's order one with your meal. You'll be all right. Now, this is after he's been in the hospital for a while and learned. Ordered a cocktail with my meal. Now he's got it in the body. Now the allergies got him. So I ordered another one. Of course he did. So after dinner, look at these two words. I decided. Self starts making these decisions. Take a walk. I returned to the hotel. It struck me. What struck him? Self struck him. Eyeball will be fine before going to bed. So I stepped into the bar and had one. We always just had one, right? Just one. I'm just going to have one. Well, he says, hell, I remember having plenty more. Of course he did. He triggered the allergy. Now he ain't got no choice. He is gone. And plenty the next morning. And he says, I have a shadowy recollection of being in an airplane bound for New York, finding a friendly taxi cab driver at the landing field instead of my wife. Next paragraph. As soon as I regain my ability, keywords here, to think. Yeah. Now I'm going to go carefully over the evening in Washington. Not only had I been off guard, look directly level across the page to the other page there. He says it was only a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard. Now he says, hell, not only have I been off guard, I've made no fight whatever against the first drink. This time, keywords, I had not thought of the consequences. Of course he did. Hell, we're blinded by self. We can't see that. Powerful, powerful stuff. Next page. Page 42, for those of you there on Zoom. They said that though I did raise the defense, it'd one day give way before some trivial reason for having a drink. Oh, wow. Well, just that did happen and more. For what? Key words here. I had learned. These self's all about learning. Teach me the steps. Teach me the tradition. Teach me, teach me, teach me. They don't want me to have an experience with that. I just want to learn something. See, he says that didn't occur to me at all. I knew from that moment on I had an alcoholic mind. Wow. Middle of the page, two members of Alcoholics Anonymous came to see me. They grinned, which I didn't like so much, and they asked me if I, keyword here, thought myself an alcoholic, and if I were really licked this time, I had to concede to both propositions. Next paragraph. They outlined the spiritual program of the spiritual answer, step 2, and the program of action, steps 3 through 12, which 100 of them had followed successfully. So I've been a nominal church man. It doesn't matter if we're a good member, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I was a good member of Alcoholics Anonymous for all those years. I really was. Their proposals were not intellectually hard to swallow. He doesn't say anything about spirit there. But the program of action, steps 3 through 12, so entirely sensible, it's pretty damn drastic. And everybody I've worked with in the last 4 years will tell you that's absolutely the truth. Because here's why. I have to throw several lifelong conceptions out the window. Those that I've picked up for 25 years now, Alcoholics Anonymous. Hell, it's got to go. It served me then. It don't serve me now. It killed me now. If I'm not growing as we go, I'm going instead of growing. And that's what happened. Only drugs and alcohol didn't find me. Everything else did. So he says, that was not easy, but the moment I made up my mind to go through with the process, now he's on the right. Now sanity's returned. I had the curious feeling that my alcoholic condition was relieved, as in fact it proved to be. Quite as important was the discovery that spiritual principles would solve, key word here, all my problems. Not just the drink problem, not just the drug problem, not just the lust, the overeating, the undereating, whatever it may be, all my problems. I've since been brought into a way of living infinitely more satisfying and I hope more useful than the life I lived before. Bottom paragraph. Once more. I love this because Bill's saying, damn it. For 42 pages, we have told you the body and the mind's going to kill you. Body, mind, body, mind, body, mind. So I'm going to tell you once more. The alcoholic at certain time has no, keyword, effective mental defense against that first drink, except in a few rare cases. Now, neither he nor any other human being can provide that defense. But notice how he says, certain times, not all the time, this shit's going to wait on me. It's going to wait on me. And it's going to come back to see me again. So at certain times, I'm not going to have any effective mental, not all the time. He nor any other human being can provide such a defense. That defense must come from a higher power because I cannot overcome self with self. I just can't. I have to have a power. That ends step 1 in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous.